You're listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. Once again, here's your hosts, Gary Kelley and Brad Avergon.
Welcome back to the second half of All Things Real Estate. I'm Gary Kelley with RE/MAX Executive Realty, and I am joined by the infamous Brad Avergon.
Hey, Gary, how are you?
All right, I'm good. Since it's the second half of the show, I'm
You
still
haven't
feeling
changed
kind of
since the
like I
first
did in the
half.
beginning.
So, Gary,
So-
I have a question. I'm going to lead off with this question because we the first half of the show, we were talking about the home inspection contingency and how, I asked you the question whether you thought it would move back to where it was pre-purchase and sale before. And you said the big bugaboo was that people have been using that as a negotiating technique. Do you think, in your opinion, now that we've kind of gone through this metamorphosis, so to speak, do you think that the even if they do move it back, do you think that the idea of putting a higher limit on what's going to be disputed, so to speak? So if you do a home inspection prior to purchase and sale agreement and you put a number on it, say 5,000 or 10,000, whatever that number is, do you think that will give sellers the comfort to kind of do them prior to P&S? The reason I ask is because I think a lot of buyers going into it, there's a lot of, especially with first-time home buyers, there's a lot of apprehension. And it's not that they necessarily will need to renegotiate, but they also don't want to buy a lemon, so to speak. They don't want to get into a house where they find out it was built on a toxic nuclear waste dump. Now, right now at P&S, they run the risk that they could lose their 5% deposit because it's already gone to P&S versus $1,000. And I think that would equal the playing field. Do you see that as an option coming forward?
Brad, you're a reasonable guy, and that's a reasonable person's perspective. Okay. The issue that you get into is, let's say someone puts a limit. I'm not going to go back and ask for anything that totals under 10 grand. Well, 10 grand on a house, if you get the wrong person doing the estimate, you can run up a big tab pretty quickly. Okay. I know someone who just bought a house and the soffit, it's a split. The soffit in the front of the house had some rot. So the soffit had to come down, had to be re-insulated, and had to have wood replaced. And the buyer was saying, or at this point, the owner was saying to the contractor, just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it. Well, the bill came, and the bill to do that work was $1,100. And I sit there and I say to myself, that seems high to me. Don't know. I'm not a contractor. Okay. But I look at it and say, you pull down the soffit in front of the building. Let's say that you spend 8 hours on that entire project, and then you had to buy a piece of plywood. Well, that's going to be expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly very expensive now. And you put that back up. I struggle with coming up with an $1,100 value, but I think what that points to has nothing to do. I don't think the contractor was a bad contractor or anything like that. I think it's about homeowners not saying, yeah, just take care of it without having some dimensions around what the cost is going to be. That has nothing to do with COVID or anything else. It has to do with, how you interact with vendors.
True.
So my concern is, if you have a number that's 10,000, just using that as an example, I think it's pretty easy to run up a series of things that go into that. And then it gets into, well, what vendor are you using? If you use my vendor, I can come in under that. If you're using your vendor, it's going to be more. It's like plumbing. There's a company around this area that is very well known, and they have a name. And if you see their truck in front of the house, I can tell you now, they're paying huge. They're paying through the nose. Okay. They do good work, but the systems that they install, in my experience, tend to be very elaborate as opposed to, basic run-of-the-mill kinds of systems. And the elaborate stuff costs money. So if you're a reasonable guy and you say, listen, we're not going to nickel and dime you, but if it's big, if the house is rolling down the hill, if the house has sill rot, sill rot, not uncommon in a 200-year-old house, and it's not that expensive to take care of. You have to jack up the house, you have to go in, replace it. But we did that recently on a house in Northborough. Actually had termite damage in the sill, and we got the thing fixed for under $2,000.
Wow.
I don't think that's, $2,000's a lot of money, but I don't think that's outrageous when you hear termites in a house.
Sure, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. I think that's where your expertise comes in, and being able to put things into scope for a buyer. I look at it like a used car, right? When you buy a house, unless you're buying new construction, you're buying a used product, right? There's some wear and tear associated with that property, and you can't expect it's going to be new. Every used home is going to have some sort of scratch or dent or wherever that you're going to need to address. Being able to put it into scope, I think before you get to purchase and sale, I think it's going to help a lot of buyers if we can get there. Right now, the market is very one-sided. So it's like you walk in, you try to assess the situation. How bad could this possibly be in your layman's eyes, and you kind of go with it, right? And then you put your money down, and you're in, right? You're 5%. Nobody's walking away that quick.
Right. Exactly. So Brad, let's switch and take a look at the financial side. A lot of people have been, buying houses these days, and all of a sudden they're coming in and saying, I have cash. And, cash is king. Cash means you don't have to have an appraisal. Cash means you don't have to have the bank involved. You don't have to have underwriters involved, etc. Are you seeing a lot of cash deals at this point? Or do you think that that's going to temper a bit as well?
I think that is going to temper a bit. I think that a lot of people are throwing the word cash around, really not understanding what it means, that when they put a cash offer on the table, the expectation of the seller is that you are going to pay cash. And, that I had a situation where somebody put a cash offer down, and their intention was to take a mortgage. There was enough time there to do so. And in this particular case, the seller refused to give access to the property to an appraiser, and said, this is for a home up in New Hampshire, and refused to give access, and said, nope, you said cash. That's it. You're paying cash. You showed us the funds. That's what you said. That's what our expectation is. We don't care. And right. It was a very interesting position to take. But in this particular case, it was a lot of competition on that house, and that's what they wanted. I think a lot of people are going in with the intention of, I'm going to get a mortgage. And what they don't understand is, yes, if you put it in the offer and you stipulate we're getting a mortgage as of a convenience, that's an option. But the seller has to agree to that. It's all about communications, and nothing, I think, riles the seller. Correct me if I'm wrong. Nothing riles the seller more than if somebody says they're going to behave this way, and then all of a sudden they pull a 180 and say, oh yeah, we're going to do an inspection, and we're going to do, and we want to get a mortgage, even though we told you you're going to pay cash and have no inspection. That lack of communication and transparency makes the seller feel victimized, and I think that creates.
Yeah, we had a deal like that where it goes back to the home inspection, where someone said, we're buying the house, no home inspection. We got the deal signed, got purchase and sale signed, and then the request came in to do a home inspection. Now, it's one thing if you say up front, I want to do a home inspection, but I'm going to do it after P&S. And it's another thing to say, I'm not going to do a home inspection, then all of a sudden, woo, surprise, we're doing a home inspection.
Yeah.
I come from the belief that people should have the home inspection. So I had to advocate to the seller that, yeah, this is okay. But we also added some words that basically said, it's great that you're going to have a home inspection. You can't walk from the deal.
Right.
And it was, the words were very good and very clear that you can inspect all you want, but you're not walking from this deal.
And I think the same is true on the mortgage financing side. But even more importantly than that, what a lot of buyers don't understand is they say, well, if I pay cash for the deal, the minute I close, I can go do a refinance on it. I'm going to get the exact same rate I would have gotten if I purchased it. And that is not the case. There is a concept called delayed financing where we can do delayed financing on a transaction, but you're not getting the same exact interest rate as a purchase. And so it is important that if you are going to be looking for purchase financing, even if you have the cash to be able to pay for it, if your intention is to get mortgage, it's really important that you communicate that to your buyer agent so that they can put some verbiage similarly crafted to what you just described, some creative verbiage in there that says basically, yes, we can pay cash. If we don't get a mortgage, we're going to pay cash, where our intention is not to walk away, but as a convenience, we want to be able to get a mortgage and we're going to proceed with a mortgage application. Do you have a problem with that?
So Brad, in round numbers, what's the difference in interest rate, just as an example, between a typical purchase these days and if someone has to do a kind of a refi?
Probably about 1/4%,
Okay.
maybe I would say 1/4%, 1/4% or maybe 3/8.
I don't know. That doesn't seem like it's unreasonable. Doesn't seem like it's out of control.
No, it's not, but it's still, if you've got the option, it over 30 years, that money adds up. And if I said to you, you can pay this rate or you can pay that rate, you're obviously going to want to take the lower rate. But people don't realize that there's a difference between the two. And look, there are times that you need to do it. If somebody has to close, in 15 days, right? They're making an aggressive offer. They want to close in 3 weeks. That's tough to get a mortgage in that amount of time. We have to get appraisers out typically and things like that. So that's tough to get a mortgage in that amount of time. And if that's what's enabling you to get that property versus other competition, you got to do it. But there are other times where closing is 60 days out, which is more than enough time for someone like myself to get my clients a mortgage. But you need to communicate that so that everybody's on the same page.
Right. So Brad, it's June 20th and we're recording this show. And you know what it is today?
What, Gary?
It's Father's Day. And a little factoid I will share with you in bringing the show to a graceful close is that every person that's working on the show today is a father. Yourself.
I am. Proud Papa. You yourself.
I've got the grandkids and all that. It's all great. And Keith Erickson, who does our video, he's a dad. And Ted A, who's behind the glass and making us sound good, he's got 3 kids. Who he made some comment about they're grown and not groaning, which I think gives a sense of Ted A's sense of humor more than anything else. So the other thing that I think that we have to do is introduce some estrogen to the show as we go forward.
We'll do a special Mother's Day show. We'll bring in we'll have Sue come in and she'll work with us.
See, Sue doesn't like being on camera. And I, at the height of COVID, as you know, I had a picture of Sue that was hanging on a microphone stand, and she was actually kind of okay with that. And it was funny because I had people contacting me saying, is she okay? And the answer is yes, she's just shy, camera shy. So with that, Brad, how would someone reach you?
So the best way to reach me, Gary, is via my cell phone, which is 978-375-5531, or they can reach me via email at bavergon, that's BAVERGON, at envisionbank.com. And Gary, how do they reach you?
I can be reached on my cell at 508-733-6005 or Gary at movewithgary.com. So Brad, great show. Have a good month. We'll catch you after, it's going to be after the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Kind of amazing. Don't go anywhere.
Nice.
I don't want to have to put masks back on, okay?
Nice barbecues this year. We can all get together. I love it.
Thanks, Brad.
Be well, Gary.
You've been listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN.